Welcome to Empire Building, the podcast where we talk about building big businesses and even bigger lives. I'm your co-host, Wendy Papasan.
I'm Sarah Reynolds.
I'm Bjuilding.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poel. This is the 6th episode in our series around the 6 personal perspectives. And it's our last one. And it's around a topic that really ties everything together, which is accountability. Because we know that once we remove limiting beliefs, there are still things that happen in our life. And something my dad taught me in my teens is you can't always control what happens to you in life, but you can control what you do about it, right? Sometimes you can't even control your first reaction. Something bad happens and you have a really bad reaction. But you can control that next thought, the second thought. You can control the attitude you keep, the ownership that you have, and the next step that you take.
Oh, I've been in so many situations where, like, instead of taking action, right, it would have been really easy. And I think I would have gotten patted and rubbed on the back for, playing the victim, for just being like, oh my gosh, this is so sad. My mom kind of does that to me inadvertently sometimes, just like, it's fine. Of course you need to take a break. Of course you're upset or, whatever it is. And I think that is normal. I mean, we're human to feel that way, right? But today we're going to kind of work through how to be accountable and to move on through that in really all areas of our lives, not just our business.
That's awesome. Yeah. And,
before we do
that,
I have a funny story around the word accountable. I thought I'd share. So every year we come up with a theme for our business, and my team was really struggling a few years ago with accountability, really struggling. So I was like, okay, our theme for this year is going to be accountability. Okay, and I was telling my family, my dad asked, what's the theme? So I told him, and then like an hour later, he pulls me aside and he's like, can I give you a recommendation? And I was like, sure, what's going on? And he was like, using the word accountable as your theme for the entire year doesn't inspire or motivate anyone.
That sounds horrible.
And I was like, I know. He was like, that sounds like a horrible theme for the whole year. It was so funny. It was so funny. And that actually was born our theme of Remarkable, which is a book about really what we're talking about today. How to be remarkable is to have more of an accountability mindset versus a victim mindset.
Are you saying you snuck in your theme with your book? You're like,
did,
we're going to talk about this great book.
We're going to call it Remarkable, and it's really going to be
exactly
accountability.
Exactly. I was like, mwahaha, I tricked you.
I won. I still win. I could just see you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really true because when we think about being accountable, that doesn't sound like there's nothing that's fun about that.
Yeah.
But what's great about it is that if you can do what Seychelle said, which is to understand that everything is you, everything that everything that happens to you. Everything that you think happens to you is actually all your choice. I mean, here's a stupid example. You go to drive up to Target and there's no parking left, right? And you might be like, ugh, I have to walk from the store next door, and there's no parking spots, and it's hot. I'm in Texas, and it's not fun. And the reality is you chose to go to Target at 5:30 on a Wednesday afternoon when it's really crowded. So that's on you.
Yes,
it's on you that the parking lot is crowded.
Well, 100%. And the other thing, Wendy, too, is sorry to say, but it's just that if you go upstream enough, it's always you. I mean, sometimes it's 2 or 3 decisions removed, right? But you're like, how did I get here, right? And it's always you. Yes. It's just, sometimes you have to back out of those decisions a few times,
Yeah. Everything that happens on your team or in your business, it's all you. I mean, who hired that person? Who allowed that to happen? Who hired the person that hired that person?
Yep.
It all goes back to you.
Yeah. It's, and I even saw this play out on like a 7-year-old level this summer, where we had some of our friends up visiting us near Lake Michigan, and we were going down to the beach near one of the towns, and the parents were like, no one gets in the water. We're just having lunch by the water, and then later we'll go get in and swim. And the son's like, cool, got it. 20 seconds later, in the water, immediately in the water, completely buried in the water. And they're like, buddy, we told you not to get in the water. And he comes running back and he goes, why didn't you bring me extra clothes? You know, and it's like, dude, you have to be accountable. We told you not to get in the water. You know, it's like such a, you know, as adults, how many times do we do that and we don't even realize it? You know, it starts at such a young age. And they were great. They totally coached him through it, like amazing parents, because they're awesome. But I was like, gosh, that it starts at such a young age that we, if we're not taught and trained how to think about these things and it's not modeled for us, it's very easy to gain a victim mentality regardless of what age you are, even if you jump in the water without extra clothes.
Okay, so Sarah, what are our 5 steps to improve accountability? You notice I said Sarah, not you.
You're trying to move us along.
I did notice that.
What's your rush? Mia, what's your rush? Yeah, normally it's you just prattling on.
Come on. Look at that. Rude.
All right. Forget everything I said. Let's just tell stories for an hour. Okay, fine.
Yeah, well, I have another great story before I'm going to give the
Chop, ladies.
Sass.
Okay.
Sass right there.
Okay. No, I went to this parenting class, and the speaker was like, you know, everyone wants to focus on the kid that cuts in line, like in terms of like, don't, you know, they're a bully, they're cutting in line, you know, and he's like, what you should focus on is the kid that let him. And it was like, that's actually the victim that allows someone to let, and it made me look at my children.
I love that so much.
Wow.
Because my Caitlin for sure can have a victim mindset about things, and I didn't even see it until I took this parenting class. I'm like, oh my goodness, and we're allowing it, right? They stole my toy, they did this, like it's like, no, you're allowing those things. So let's get into the 5 simple steps to improve accountability in every aspect of your life.
I'm just actually, can I share what I'm thinking right now? Where my brain is screwing.
Here we go.
No, it's not bad. So no, I'm imagining Sarah Reynolds as an 8-year-old and some bully cutting in front of her. And I feel very, very, very certain that you would not let that happen.
100%. That's a good image.
No. So that was my
Really
image.
cute
Yeah.
image.
Sorry, guys.
Oh,
That's a superb image. I feel like we need to have a picture of Sarah at 8
Can we get a picture
In the show notes.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
I had beautiful blonde
8-year-old Sarah.
curls. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm sure you're cute.
That could go on on our Empire Building podcast website. Oh, wait.
Yeah, it's like
I just added it
Should
to
we
my
have
notes.
cute? I
Producer, somebody.
We don't even have an Instagram
they just
account,
took it down.
ladies. We need to get on it. Oh, my goodness.
It's like, I definitely look like the one.
It's like we need someone to hold us accountable.
Seriously. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It all comes back
Yes.
full circle.
Yes.
Oh, man.
So right now that's going to be, I will be the someone, and I will move us on to the 5 simple steps. Okay. Number one, first step is to seek reality. This is so huge. Like, are you even looking for it? Are you seeking reality? Number 2 is acknowledge reality. So once you have found it, to acknowledge reality. Number 3 is own it and be empowered by owning it. Number 4 is finding the solutions. And then number 5 is just get on with it. Get on with it. So those are our 5 simple steps to improve accountability.
Okay. So I love this so much.
Dig into them.
Because it's a framework. So we're going to.
I know. That's why I gave you number 1.
So I got number 1 so I could get this framework into gear. Number 1 is seek reality. Right. So you have, a couple choices when life punches you in the nose. Right. You can either ask no questions and curl up in fetal position like we talked about and play victim, or and by the way, you can stay stuck when you do that, or you can seek reality and start, exploring and investigating and asking the questions. And so, some questions to ask are, okay, what is the actual situation, right? What is the weather outside? Not what I want it to be, but is it raining right now? Is there a storm brewing in this area of my life? The question I ask myself a lot, and I'm just going to prep you that this question can take some white space behind it. The question is, what am I not admitting to myself right now? And the reason I ask myself that question is because I find that sometimes as a protection mechanism, our brains don't even want to admit certain things because it's tough. to absorb them.
Yeah.
So you almost have to
Oh, yeah.
take you're almost like asking your subconscious brain to come forward and tell you things that your brain thinks it's protecting you against. And so what am I not admitting to myself is a great question to ask. Right?
Well, I said something to Tiffany about something when we were sharing our hotel room this last week for our event. And she said, oh, well, that's one story. She said, what could be another story? I thought that was so amazing. I actually turned around and I used it on Sarah.
Use it on me. You used it on me. Yeah.
Yes. So I thought it was really good. I thought it was, it's like, oh, well, that's one story. What's another story?
Yes.
So even taking a second and asking yourself that question, like, okay, what's another story? Because we're telling ourselves stories all the time. It's part of being human.
Yeah.
All the
Brene
time.
Brown talks about that in her Dare to Lead book. And it has had such a big impact on me here recently. And so George read it. And I mean, that's what he said to me. He was like, I did not realize how many stories I was making up in my head, and just coming to these conclusions based on the story that I was making up in my head. So I loved that question. So that's one story. What's another?
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, and often the people that we're doing it with is the people that are closest to us. We're just we're wandering around making up a story around something they said or that they didn't do or whatever. Yeah. And that's not the story at all.
True, right.
It's not the story at all. All right. Well, so number 2 is once you've sought out reality, you really need to acknowledge it. So again, we've got 2 choices. We can deny the situation once we really understand what the truth of the situation is.
And that's the easier one, honestly. It's much easier to deny it.
Oh,
and
for
just
sure.
Not own it. It's way easier just to put your fingers in your ears and la 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 and pretend it doesn't exist.
8-year-old Sarah.
Yeah. It's really true. Or you can deny the situation, or we can fight reality and fight reality, or we can acknowledge it. Mm-hmm. Denial looks like this. That's not the way it is. That's not how I see it. That's your perception, not mine. And acknowledging reality is, okay, this is the way it is. I got it. I'll dig in and see what's going on. You also want to think about your part that you played in the situation, And especially when really hard things happen to you, it's so easy to go to this place where you are constantly blaming the other person. But there's never, ever any altercation that's completely one-sided. Even like what Via was saying before is you could focus on the bully, but there's also that person who let the bully in. Yep. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's really what we're talking about. So Seychelle, looked like you were about to say something.
Yeah. I think that question, whenever bad things happen, of where is my DNA in the situation? I especially think about that when a team member's not working out, or you're having to deselect and get out of business with someone. The first thing we do when we're trying to make it work is ask, what part did we play in this of them not succeeding? Where did we not train them right, or not set proper expectations, or not hold them to explaining what the standard was or what we were expecting from them, or where did we miss something on our end, and owning that. And I think that all of a sudden allows the team member that maybe is not performing to lean in on their side too and say, okay, you're owning those things. Well, let me lean in then on not being a victim by also leaning in on my things too. But I love that question. We use it all the time of what's my DNA in this? Because you're so right. There's always 2 parts to a problem. And usually both sides have DNA all over it.
Yep.
Yeah. I think in leading and leadership, which is what you're talking about, Seychelle, this is so crucial. Mm-hmm. So crucial. And if you are at the helm, you are the leader of your organization, showing this and in saying it, right, and even apologizing publicly and acknowledging when you've messed up can be one of the most powerful things you can do. I do this pretty regularly, where I examine almost every situation that didn't go like I would have liked it to go, and I'm asking myself, what's the DNA I have in it? And honestly, I don't focus on anything else. Once I can figure out, okay, this is where I messed up, I then go to my leadership team or go to my team and I apologize and I explain what I've learned from it. I had one of my key leaders come up to me recently and he was like, I really think you need to stop apologizing. Like, you say sorry too much. Like, you acknowledge the things that you've done wrong, not the things, what your DNA in the situation too much. I looked right back at him and I was like, never. I hope our organization will always be that our leaders are willing to say, I messed up. This is my DNA in it, and this is what I'm going to do different. Mm-hmm. I think it's so, so, so powerful as leaders to do that, and hard at times.
Yeah, totally. Well, and number 3 is then moving that towards the next step, which is owning it, right? Owning your part, right? You've already figured out what part you played. Now you got to own it and be empowered. And so often we project and blame others for the situation, right? And that can sound like, well, if everybody did their job, right? Or it's not my fault, it's yours. Or, the market is to blame. It's not my fault my business is bad. The market is to blame right now. Or the economy is bad. Or why didn't you do something? And I think that's so easy to have those scapegoats and those outs. But when we choose a different path and we choose to own it, now all of a sudden there's control in that. And if we're allowing ourselves to be the victim, there's no control. You have no power over your destiny. And when all of a sudden you choose to own it, there's an element of control that you can take and move the ball forward, right? So we can look for our DNA in the situation and figure it out and choose to do something about it. And that takes energy, it takes focus to accomplish, but it also takes us removing our ego from the situation. And I think that's probably one of the hardest parts when you decide to own it, is removing your ego when something's gone wrong or failure's happened or something really bad has happened, because oftentimes we're already bruised and kind of hurt and feeling deflated. So putting your ego on the shelf and realizing that it's not about what has happened, your ego instead needs to be engaged in what you do next, makes a huge difference in the outcome that you're going to have. And so, yeah, go ahead, Wendy.
Well, and I was just going to say, this is all really hard.
Yeah, it sounds easy
because we all have massive blind spots. All of us, even those of us that have worked on ourselves for a long time, we have massive blind spots, and so that's why it's important to journal. Journaling is important, not for the journaling, for reviewing your journal, going back and being like, "Wow, this happened before. This is a pattern that is happening with me." Wow, the only thing consistent with this is me, right? So what do I have to blame? Mm-hmm. And then also getting a coach or a partner or a friend that you can be honest with, who says, hey, you know what? Here's what I see. Here's what I see about you and the situation. And, it could be, the story could be one way, but also it could be a different way.
Yeah. I think surrounding yourself by people that are willing to do that too, that have the same accountable mindset, right? I'll never forget the conversation Via and I had, and she stopped me and she was like, "You're going to be mad at me for just a few minutes, but I have to say something to you." And I was like, "Let me hear it." And she's like, "You're being a victim, and you need to change the way you're thinking about this." And I was actually not mad. I was thankful to have a friend that was willing to say that, because she was absolutely right in that moment. And so making sure you're surrounding yourself with people that are willing to call it out.
And that was said from complete love, because my perspective of that call is, I remember listening, I was like, this is not my Sarah. This is not my powerful, driven, lady boss friend, Sarah. This is not her. I don't know what happened to her. And I didn't like it. So my perspective was like, no. She doesn't hear herself. She's completely blind spotted right now. And she will be appalled when she learns that came out,
Well, and it's also okay to have a pity party for yourself. Totally. Like there is absolutely 100%. Nothing wrong with that. Like when bad things happen, you don't always just have to power through it with just a super strong mindset. So it's okay to have a pity party. It's okay to mourn whatever is going on. It's okay to be sad and upset and vulnerable and all of those things. But then after you've lived through that emotion, you want to take a step back and you really want to examine the situation and say, hey, what was my DNA in all of that? So,
and by the way,
and then
sorry.
Go ahead, Via.
Well, I just am so glad Wendy pointed that out, because I wouldn't want anyone to, you're right. And I just wouldn't want anyone to not think that. And Sarah, go back to our call, because now it's fresh on my head. And I wanted you to own that emotion. Like, you were frustrated. You deserved to feel frustrated in that moment. And you deserve to feel kind of defeated in that moment. So I wanted to, you have to own the emotion behind it, but I wanted you to take accountability behind it too. Like, hey, I love you. You're my friend. You get to feel disappointed right now. Cause I think that's what I said. Like, I would too. I feel kind of like a punch in the gut.
Yeah.
And I need you to, put on your big girl pants right now, because these are big girl problems. And actually these problems are freaking awesome. And they're what you should expect to deal with at this level. And I'm here for you, and so that was our conversation, just to tie that up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate you adding that for sure. So step 4 was find solutions. So you do all of that. And then you've got to be, it's one thing to look at things and find excuses and deflect, right? Like, so no one told me, it's not my job. I did my part. I was never given a chance. It won't work here. Right. And so many times we can have that sort of victim mindset versus a solution oriented mindset, which is like, what are my options? How can I get what I want?
Yeah.
What can I do? Right. Who can help me with this? Who has succeeded before me? Who can I talk to that has accomplished what I'm thinking about accomplishing, right? Versus like, woe is me. Like, who is the who that I need to surround myself with to find the solutions, right? So being solution minded versus focusing on the problem.
Okay, I got so excited. I just want everyone to know. I did not just raise my finger. I raised my hand
pumped.
like, pick me. Okay.
Me.
Because I just remembered a real life example that Sarah helped me with. I don't think I've told you the story, so you're going to hear it for the first time. But Sarah, you were coaching me on something, and you go, Via, I want you to sound like a partner, because you don't sound like a partner right now. You sound like a, secretary groveling to, no, stop. Like, you need to sound like a partner and practice, this. So I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. Okay. So I, did this big initiative. I pitched this big initiative, and I'm all excited about it. And I got to a point, this is very recently, I got to a point a few weeks ago where I was frozen and I couldn't move forward in action, which is not like me. I have 2 speeds, fast and faster. But when we all need help, and we all need collaboration. And I was just stuck. I didn't know what to do next. I just was at that point.
Yep.
And actually, someone, in my company, the president of my company saw it. And he said, I'm going to fly to Seattle, and we're going to spend a day together, and we're going to work through this. I think we need to work through this. I was like, that is exactly what I need. And he flew out, and we spent, and I'm like, boom, it's all I needed, was, and finding solutions, because we're on, number 4, finding solutions. It often includes other people. And, this is where when we get frozen, if you find, because we're going to lead right into number 5, which is get into action, get on with it, right?
Yeah.
If you find that you're struggling finding a solution so that you can move to number 5, often what's missing is collaboration with another person.
So true.
And so that just reminded me of that. That's why I was raising my hand really wildly. And
sometimes it's not necessarily a human in terms of someone you might have access to, but like, reading books, point. Listening to podcasts, obviously. As Olivia says, the Google, you can find lots of things on the Google.
Google. It's the interwebs.
Yeah, the Google. In terms of solutions to find companies and or people that have gone through similar things. So definitely either getting in a new room or surrounding yourself by different people, or putting the research in to then come up with your action plan to get on with it. Which is
yeah. Well, and if it's a big problem, it's going to require a big solution.
Yeah.
Yep. And that is number 5, get on with it, get into action. Action is the best cure for almost anything. And, we say it a lot here where, there's a lot of pressure put on your North Star or your big why. And I like the term that Wendy dubbed that I use all the time, which is you can date this, not marry it. Right. So, when we say get on with it.
I was actually Dick Dillingham.
It was Dick Dillingham. Oh, it's so good. I use it all the time. And I
love it too.
Actually quote you.
I love it too.
Yeah. Thank you for attributions are important to me, so I will
wanted to amplify Dick there.
I love that. So, the bottom line is that is that, any action is better than no action in almost any aspect of your life. The best example I have on Get On With It, and a lot of people here are in sales that listen to our podcast. Doesn't matter what kind of sales. Everybody goes through sales slumps. It's just part of it, right? And so when you go through a sales slump, what I coach real estate agents, and what I coach them all the time is get into action. And then inevitably they say, as you ladies know, well, I don't have any business. There's nothing to get into action on. The number one advice I give to agents in a sales slump, are you ready? Okay, go preview homes. I want you to go preview. I have a 15-day jumpstart program. I put them on. It's 50 homes in 2 weeks. You know why I do that? It's not because they need to see product. Action. It's because it gets them into action.
Yes, to get
their conversations change, their energy changes, their social media changes, and almost 95% of them end up getting in. These are seasoned sales professionals. End up getting into transaction in that 2 week period, and it's simply because they got into action.
I love that, Bia.
Yeah. Well, I think a good metaphor is to think about it like this: if you were plopped down in the middle of the ocean with a rowboat and 2 days of supplies, eventually you need to start rowing, right?
Yep.
Because you can't see any land around you. And you can either sit there and hope for someone or something to come and pick you up, or you need to start rowing, and you might row in the wrong direction, but rowing in the wrong direction can be better than not rowing at all. So.
I love that. Well, you guys, this is a topic that is not talked about enough and needed more than I think we all realize. And whatever's going on in your world, we hope that you find a way to seek reality, to acknowledge that reality, right? And realize what part you play in it, to own it and be empowered to move it forward, to find solutions, and then get into action, baby. Get on with it. So thank you for joining us today. We're so thankful for you guys. And if you like this episode, please share it with someone. We know that it's been a lot of up and downs over the last couple of years, and maybe it will help someone that needs to hear this today. So thanks for joining us, guys. Go out and build a big business and an even bigger life.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.